Hello, hello. Welcome to the second episode of Tommi Talks this year, 2023. Today I have two topics for you. I have news about our latest improvements and additions within attended automations. So we're going to talk about the assistants. And then second, we're going to talk about generative AI, OpenAI, and some of the developments on that front. And for that part, we have a guest star visiting the show. I'm really thrilled. So let's get going. Let's start with updates on attended automations. First of all, you probably aware of Robocorp Assistant. That's the application that you run on a user's device. Well, it can be Mac OS, Linux, or Windows, to run those attended automations. So that's the application installed on the machine. We first of all made massive updates on that application. So we released the version 2.0.1, and I think there's actually a later one as well. I'm just looking at the original release note here, which by the way is in updates robocorp.com. So always remember to follow that address. So it brings massive amount of updates to the Robocorp Assistant application. It's better user experience. It has better ways of handling the outputs of all the automations. And because of some of the updates that we made, it doesn't auto-update from the previous version. So it's a major update. It needs to be manually updated from the downloads page. So just keep that in mind when flipping over to the new version. The underlying library that creates those robots, the attended robots, or assistants as we call them, it used to be called RPA dialogues, and you can find the documentation still here. We are deprecating the RPA dialogues, so it's still supported. If your automations are running on RPA dialogues, they continue to work, at least for time being. But there's a new library, and we renamed it because there's so much new capabilities with the new library, and that's called RPA Assistant. And the assistant library is completely revamped in a way that you can build the user interfaces and the dialogues with the users. Previously, we were quite limited on a few components that we provided, but we changed the underlying library to be flat. And I have an example here, a really quick one, and you can actually find it from our portal as well. Or if you create a new robot and choose assistant as a template, that's what you get as an example. So it does kind of a tour of all of the components that you can find in the new RPA Assistant library. I'm just going to run it here locally, show you a couple of new things within the assistant. So first of all, the UI looks a little bit different. It's also massively faster than previously. It shows you the available static components, input components, and file components, and then an example. Just going to browse these quickly so you can do different types of texts. You can do images, icons, links, and I think these are really cool. So you can have a input text, a secret text, drop downs. You can have radio buttons, and you can do sliders. We actually have a really cool example with Base64 signature matching, which is using sliders for setting the threshold for machine learning extraction and checkboxes. And of course, file components, the current file, links to the file, choosing multiple files from a dialog. That's pretty much what's happening with the assistant. We could keep on adding features here continuously. So stay up to date by following the updates.robocorp.com. Next up, let's talk about generative AI. And obviously, you cannot miss this topic at the moment. So it's everywhere. You read LinkedIn, you read about ChatGPT and large language models. And obviously, it's happening with the RPA world as well. We are working on two fronts with large language models. First of all, we believe that they will help you build robots faster, much faster than you can do today. And then secondly, we are of course working on the capabilities of the robots themselves. So you can go and check the developments on RPA.OpenAI library. And I'm going to share you a screen for that here. So RPA OpenAI library got new features this month. The new keyword is chat completion create. There's an example in our portal for this. You can go try it out. The chat completion create uses the latest model from OpenAI as a comparison to completion create, which uses the GPT-3 models only. So you're now able to use both models in your robots. And of course, we do have other things like image creation using the DALL-E and other things. But let's go back to building robots. I saw a tweet recently by Morten saying that he was able to get his Python robot done using ChatGPT and Robocorp, of course. And I reached out to Morten and asked if he could join us in a stream, just talk about his experience quickly and what was he working on, how did it work out, and how does he see these things developing further. So I have a pleasure to bringing Morten in. Let's find the right button to add him in the stream. Here's Morten, and we just configure the stream properly, say his name too here. Welcome, Morten.
Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm good. Good.
Quick introduction. Where are you from? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm from Denmark, and I work as an RPA developer / project manager at the Helsingør municipality in the north of Zealand.
That's amazing, and thank you for the tweet. We obviously loved it a lot, and it was so it was well timed. We were just looking at, okay, so what can you do? Where does this thing go? So you just came out at the right time.
Yes.
Maybe let's go back to your tweet. So what were you working on when you actually then ended up tweeting this?
Yeah, so I was trying to calculate the amount of hours that some of our employees has been working on a monthly basis, but for the entire preceding year. And the issue was that I had to calculate it from the 16th of one month until the 15th of the following month, because that's where our HR department, they calculate the salaries. And I tried using just Robocorp framework to make these calculations, and it didn't really fit. And I tried Python, and my Python skills are not the best. I spent a lot of time on Stack Overflow, and then I think after half an hour, 45 minutes, I was like, hey, let's try ChatGPT. And because of this conversational mode, I could kind of fine tune what I was trying to get to work, because I also had a hard time even explaining it to myself. So going back and forth a bit with ChatGPT got me a piece of Python code that I could then just copy paste into Robocorp.
So you basically became a Python capable developer overnight when ChatGPT was launched.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the background before. Like, what's your relationship with RPA before, and what's done earlier?
Yeah, so I started as a citizen developer. So I have a master's degree in the history of religion. So I had nothing to do with coding. But then spending some years as a caseworker, I got a bit bored and I wanted to start to program. And then I worked at the Technical University of Denmark, DTU, and they started doing the citizen developer stuff. And then it just gradually spread from there. So that's kind of my background. So I know some programming, but not a lot. Yeah.
So essentially, like I have the ChatGPT here open. So essentially, you were describing your robot, or like not the robot, but your task that you want to accomplish. So
Yes.
I want a Python code that counts total hours of my employees per season or per month. Let's say per month. We're just simplifying things.
Yeah.
Things here, and obviously, we're not going to go into details of a case, but just
No.
to show the audience that you will get a code segment in Python, and
Exactly.
in this case, of course, it invents the code, the data here. But
yes. So what I did was actually just copy paste part of the CSV file in, and like said, this is my file. How would you sum this up?
So I think now it gets into, it just made an example that this would be the data. So you had a CSV file, you put the CSV in, and you get something out. And what was it easy to plug it in back to your robot in Robocorp?
Yes, that was really easy. I mean, I think I spent maybe 10 minutes chatting with ChatGPT, and then I got a piece of code that worked. So I think I tried to run 2 or 3 different versions of what it gave me. At first, it didn't really understand what I wanted to, so it only calculated for the month of January, for instance.
Yes.
Because my coding skills are not so good, I didn't catch that, but I caught it when I tried to run the robot, and then like, oh no, it has to be for the entire year, and then okay, and then it gave me a fixed code.
Yeah. So. And that's what I think is really amazing, and like the power of Python-based platform is that, first of all, the language models are pretty well supportive of Python. That's probably the primary language that they can support really well. But it's not only the code generation part, but it's also the error kind of a fixing capabilities. So you can make a piece of code, it doesn't work. You ask like, okay, I'm getting this error, and I've seen it already a few times that you can actually fix the code using the dialogue with the ChatGPT.
Yes, I mean, I also started using it more. Like I had a robot working in SAP, and I got an error that I didn't know what to do, so I just copied the error message in. And like, I'm working with Robot Framework, and this is the error I get. How do I get this button to return the right value? And then it didn't give me the exact answer, but it got me in the right direction. It saved me a lot of time from Googling.
So then obviously, I guess you're working on VSCode, not Automation Studio, as you've been using the Python, like added Python methods here. So have you considered using the Copilot, the GitHub Copilot in VSCode?
I used Copilot back when it was in, like a beta version where it was free. But I haven't used it since. I know that a lot of similar, like I would say, colleagues from other municipalities are using Copilot for their Python programming, and they say it's really worth the money. So yeah, but I haven't used it myself.
Yeah, I think we see that, and we see, especially on the Python side. I just made a quick, really simple example here, which was basically using the GitHub Copilot in the Python side. We do see that it can also generate robot framework code, but I think our advice is to be just slightly careful with the robot framework side, because the GitHub Copilot is not yet really well trained on RPA framework. So those specific keywords coming from the RPA framework library that make things easier, especially with, let's say, Selenium or Playwright and a lot of the desktop automation. So there are some shortcomings, but on a Python side, like really, I'd also say amazing job. So as a last question to you, Morten, what do you think? When will AI or large language model write the entire robot? How far are we from that?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm generally a bit skeptical about this whole AI stuff. So whenever I get a request for making a robot that does anything with like image recognition, I say, yeah, give it a few years. But then OpenAI came up with ChatGPT kind of out of nowhere and blew everyone's mind. So I don't know. I mean, now it can be a couple of years out, perhaps. I mean, what you see now is with the Microsoft's Power Automate, where you can write a prompt and it can kind of give you all the building blocks. Of course, that is all API that talks together. It's easier to do that, but I don't know, a few years perhaps, then we are all obsolete.
I have hard times believing that.
No.
Life will be so much better. But
yes,
some of the sharing some of the experiments that we are running here at Robocorp at the moment. So, for example, we're looking into significantly simplifying the experience with selectors and locators. So I think that's an area where definitely in a short term code generation will help. Like instead of you going to choose those locators on a user interface, whether it's a web or whether it's desktop, I believe strongly that we can make a way more clever system to automate user interfaces using these models. We're running experiments in that area. I was doing, this is just a really early experimentation, but conversions from different code bases. So for example, I tried a robot framework to Python conversion using generative AI, and I actually made it so that it's fixing itself. So it tries running a converted code, gives the error back to the language model and fixes the errors and does that in a loop for a while. So I think there's a lot of things that we will get, and we're strong believers that being Python based will kind of be the right way in the market to capture as much value out of these models as possible.
I kind of agree. Yeah, I mean, it makes it much easier to also to get help, because you're not tied into like a UiPath framework and community. You have the entire Python World Wide Web community to learn from.
That was amazing words. Thanks for visiting, Morten. This is the entire episode of Tommi Talks, second episode of 23. I'm going to be back in about a month, hopefully a bit sooner, because I've been lagging with my episodes. I should be doing third already now, but I'm only at the second episode. I promised 12 this year to our marketing department, so I need to speed the process up. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, and see you soon again. Bye-bye.
Robocorp, where the world comes together to automate.